So recently I've started experimenting with taking all of my isolation lifts to failure or close to failure on every single set and nothing less than that. I've come to realize that when it comes to isolation movements, bothering with keeping reps in reserve is a waste of time. Why do you need to be 3 reps in reserve on something like a dumbbell curl, or on something like a cable curl, or a lateral raise, or a cable lateral raise, or a tricep push down, or whichever isolation lift, you name it, whichever one? Why do you need to be 3 reps in reserve for that so that you have energy for the next set? Are you that tired after an isolation lift that you really need to keep reps in reserve to make sure the next set is good, is of good quality? Like, bro, think about it this way, right? It's an isolation lift and your goal is hypertrophy, right? The most important variable in hypertrophy is proximity to failure, right? So getting close to failure is what drives hypertrophy in that muscle. Now, if we're talking about a compound lift, we have to worry about systemic fatigue. You can't just take every single set of a bench press to failure. That would absolutely fucking destroy you. Same thing with a squat, same thing with a deadlift, same thing with something like a dip or any other compound lift that requires a lot of muscles and a lot of joints at play. But if we're talking about a single joint movement where you're literally bothering to train one muscle, then there's absolutely no reason why you shouldn't be taking that to failure. If you're keeping reps in reserve on something like a pec deck, or pec flies, or rear delt flies, lateral raises, front raises, curls, extensions, any of those things, I promise you, you are not getting as much out of those movements and out of those workouts as you could be. In fact, if you're doing currently a setup where per exercise you're doing 3 sets, and on that first set you have to take it easy to make sure you can do those other 2 sets, I promise you, bro, if you just cut that down to 2 sets and just take those 2 sets as close or as far as you can to that pain failure zone, dig deep, you're going to get way more out of those 2 sets than you would have from the 3 that you were doing initially. I promise you. Give this a shot. You will be surprised to find out how much you have been keeping in the tank out of fear for those coming sets afterward. There really is something to intensity when it comes to hypertrophy training, you guys. It's not something that you can just sidestep. You need it. It is an imperative. It is an absolute necessity, a variable that is so important that it will 100% be the limiting factor for your long-term growth in the bodybuilding hypertrophy-focused pursuit. And that's all for this video. Train hard. Bye.